Okay, moving on in our book on 220, we're going to talk about the color guide panel and getting creative inspiration from this. And I think you kind of used this with Mary. You looked at, I forget what it's called now, Adobe Color, or it used to be called Cooler, K-U-L-E-R, who knows, Adobe Color. So you were looking at different color families, analogous, triad, and then other ways of working with color. Let's go to Artboard 3. Oops. The cassette. Anybody remembers cassettes? They were horrible. Selection tool. Let's pick to select the big green rectangle in the back. And then before we move on, let's make sure at the bottom of our tool panel that the fill is the one that's on top down here, that it's stacked on top of the swatch. That means that we're targeting the fill, not the stroke color, sorry. All right, up in our window drop down, we're going to choose window and then come down and choose color guide. It might have been, mine was already floating open. And this is what your color guide looks like. And if you want to pull it open to see what it looks like. So your base color is the one at the top that's in the white box, and it happens to be the base color that we selected right now. And then it's showing us different color families or color rules that could work with it. And based on this one base color, we have tints and shades. So adding black or adding white to those colors to make them brighter and darker. Make sure that you click on this base color to make sure that it is truly set to be the color green of the back of our cassette, and that's going to give you color harmonies based on that. In this drop down box we have all of our different harmony rules: complementary, split complementaries, analogous, monochromatic, triads, high contrast, pentagram. These are all the different color families. We're going to choose analogous, and it loaded an analogous color harmony, which is the colors closest to it on the wheel, to the left and to the right. And the base group is the one that it's basing this color off of. If we like that and we want to save this color swatch, if we think these are colors I might want to use, at the bottom of this panel on the right, there is an icon that says save this color group to the swatch panels. Click on that, and you can see in my swatch panel, which I have free floating down here, and you can have that too. There it is. It's added, and it's called color group 1. Let's deselect on our artboard to make sure that nothing is selected. Now we also see some tints and shades up in our color guide, and we want to go to the second row and do the 6th color from the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's this light blue color. And click on it up to set it as the base color. Make sure that that happens. Once you do that, it becomes the base color. Another group of colors are generated, and another group of tints and shades are generated based on that one. Let's find a color rule using this base color that we like. So we can click on the down arrow again, and we're going to choose complementary 2. It's going to give us a bunch of swatches, 6 of them. And we're also going to save this color group to our swatch panel by clicking on the Save Color Group icon at the bottom right. So that's now been added down here in our swatch panel. So when we add color groups to our swatch panel, we can edit the swatches in the group either individually or all together. Let's make sure that we have nothing selected on our artboard, and to confirm that, go up to your Select drop-down and make sure that Deselect is grayed out, meaning there's nothing to deselect. It's important that we have nothing selected on our artboard, because we're going to go in and edit some of these colors and we don't want it applying to anything currently in our artboard. We just want to edit them within swatches. The bottom color group that we just did, we're going to click on the color group icon to the left of that. And we're going to click on the edit color group icon, which is it's the icon that looks like a color wheel. It's a circle and it goes from white to black. Edit color group. Click on that. And we get this new pop-up window, edit colors. I'm going to move that up to the top here. This icon, this edit color group, color wheel icon, is going to appear in different places throughout Illustrator, but it always looks like this and it works the same no matter where you see it. Color group 2, that's the name that this one was called right now. That's pretty generic. We're going to rename this to be cassette colors. Going to give it a name that makes more sense to us. You can hit tab, and that just makes it accept that. So we have two different panels here. We have a left side and a right side. On the left side, you can edit the colors. So right now we have color group 2, which is also called cassette colors. And we can see that it's light blue, a darker gray blue, and then some browns. And on the left-hand side, it actually shows where they live on the color wheel. So they're not very saturated. As we go out on the color wheel, the saturation or color is higher. As we come in, it gets more towards white and they get lighter and lighter. The base color that we selected is the biggest circle of these. So that's the base color, and then these other ones are the other 5 colors that were generated based on it. We're going to drag this largest blue color piece, the marker, down and to the left a little bit. We're going to make it a little bit darker. Notice that all of the colors changed with it. They're all connected by a hard line. So as we pulled that to a darker hue or a more saturation, it spread the other ones out to match that. So that's one way that we can edit that. The reason that happened is because this icon is on over here at the bottom right. It says, well, to click on it would unlink the harmonies. Right now they are linked. They have a hard line between them. Other things that you can do once you drag this out within the color wheel is we can change the brightness. And that's this slider right below it. We're going to pull on that to the right, and that's going to brighten all the colors at once. So you can see as we're pulling on this right and left, we're darkening all the colors equally at once or brightening them all at once. So everything we just did here was linked and doing it to all of the colors in the harmony at the same time, changing them all. If we wanted to tweak a color at a time, for whatever reason, we'd have to unlink these harmonies. So we're going to click on this lock button down here at the right and unlock them. Now we have a slash through that saying that they're unlocked. And also visually, we know that they're unlocked because we now have dotted lines connecting them up here in our color wheel. We can now move them independently. Moving any one of those is not going to change the others. So we could do that visually up here, or we could do it down here using numbers. Right now we're using the HSB, hue, saturation, brightness way of naming colors. But to the right of that is a menu, the 3 lines, and if you click on that, you'll see that you have all the other ways of naming color. We're going to choose CMYK, and we're going to get to the measurements that we've been seeing, how much cyan, magenta, yellow, and black are added. We're going to select the topmost marker. So back up in our color wheel, the one that's the highest up that's kind of a brownish color, click to select that one. And then in the CMYK readings down here, we see what the values are, what the mix is to get that color. We're going to change this one color numerically rather than spinning it in the wheel. They've given us an exact number they want us to type in. Cyan is 48. magenta is 74, yellow is 21, and K is 0. So by doing that, we pulled it to like a purple zone. We went from the browns and went to a purple. Now remember we had this set up, I think as, what was this, complementary, I think? It had to be they're opposite of each other. So now we kind of went off book or off the rails. We knew those colors worked together because they're based on a color harmony. We now just took one and went somewhere else. So now you have to know color and trust that what you're doing is good or right, because the other ways you know it works. It's a color harmony. It's a rule that works. So we could have dragged that slider around, or we could do it numerically like we just did. If we like this new color set and we want to save it, at the top right of this panel where it says cassette colors, there are some icons, and the first one that's lit up is Save Changes to the Color Group. And if we click on that, our cassette colors right here have now changed. Purple is replacing that dark brown that we used to have. And if we're happy with that, we say OK. And now look at our swatch panel. They've been updated there. That same color family now has that purple hue that we chose within it. All right. We can close this color guide and swatch panel, and we're going to save our file. As of right now, nothing's changed. So how do we edit these colors in our artwork now that we've got some of these working? Select all on the active artboard. So you can do that through the menu, or you could marquee select everything. Then over in your properties panel, an option that we have, we've seen group before, we've used that a lot, but look at this other one called recolor. Click on that, and we get something that looks kind of similar to what we were just doing. You're going to want this sort of out of the way so you can see more of your cassette, or maybe shrink out your view of your cassette. So this option allows us to reassign colors that exist in our document with different color families. This panel on the right-hand side that we see right now, the hide color group storage, this little arrow right here at the right-hand side, if we click on that, it makes our that panel kind of just collapse on itself, so we're only working with this recolor panel. All right. From the top of this panel, there is a sampler, and it says Get Colors from Selected Art. It's already done it for us, but click that again just to make sure that it truly is pulling all of the colors from what we have selected. Orange, yellow, green, gray, and white. We now want to click on the Edit tab. So there's two tabs up here. We're working on Assign or Edit. We want to go to the Edit tab, and we see those colors, those orange, yellow, green, gray, and white are selected on our wheel. We want to make sure that we have dotted lines, meaning our color harmonies are not linked and we can edit them independently. And instead of looking at it as a color wheel like we are right now, there's three other views that we can do. So down here at the bottom left of the color wheel, we see three icons. The first one is the smooth color wheel that we see now. The second one is like a graduated color wheel. And the third one is color bars. This simplifies it to the point of, I'm not even going to show you the wheel. I'm just going to show you, these are literally the colors that are being used right now. So it makes it a bit easier. Select your orange color bar, make sure that that's the one that's selected. And then if we want to tweak that color down here in our CMYK slider, we're going to change our yellow value from 95 all the way down to 20. And if you hit tab, that makes it happen, but you stay within this view. And notice that it recolored. Everything that was orange is now that color pink. We're going to hover our pointer over this gray color bar, and we're going to right click over that, and we're going to select a shade from here. And right now it's highlighted. This is the color gray that we are right now. We can drag this up to make it a lighter gray, or down to make it a darker gray, or we could actually even go over into the blue family. But just go ahead and make it a darker color, a darker gray, maybe even black. And notice it's automatically recoloring our artwork, because at the bottom of this panel we have recolor art selected. So it's showing us live previews of doing this. Just click away from this shade pop-up menu to get it to go away. And if we're happy with that, we can say OK. And click to deselect. So that was just recoloring artwork using that version. We now are going to learn a way of assigning colors, and we're going to work with a different artboard. So switch to artboard 4, sunglasses. So instead of doing what we just did where we clicked on the orange bar and we said anything that's orange now make it pink, or anything that's gray make it dark gray, that's one way. We're now going to assign colors, and it's going to populate over the whole document. With your selection tool, click on the green sunglasses up at the top, and then in your property bar panel on the right, go way down and find the recolor button again. That's going to pop up this recolor artwork, and we're going to open that right arrow to see the other side. So we see that we have all of the colors that are available in our swatch panel are available to us right here. Make sure that on the left-hand side of this panel that we're working on the Assign tab, not the Edit tab. So we want to be in Assign. All right, so on the left-hand side, we see the colors of the selected artwork showing up. We see green, the 2 pinks, and the white. There's 4 of them, and it says current colors 4. Over here in the new, nothing new has been assigned to them. So green still is green, light pink is still light pink, dark pink is still dark pink, and white hasn't been anything. It's like nothing right now. Over here on the right-hand side, we're going to select the cassette colors group. How many of those are there? How many swatches exist in that?
6.
6. How many colors did we sort of have to work with over here?
3.
3 or 4, depending on how you look at it, right? Is white a color or not? So what it did was it assigned the first 3 colors, the blue family, randomly over here to these colors. And not really randomly, it assigned them in a certain way. Maybe that's exactly what you wanted, maybe it isn't, but that's the way it happened. So originally, whatever was green is now this light color blue, whatever was pink is now the darker blue, whatever was dark pink is now the lightest color of blue. We can slide this left or right side panel shut again so that we have a little bit smaller panel to work with. There's an arrow to the right of the green bar, and it says controls whether colors in a row are recolored. If we click on that arrow, it's basically saying no, don't do that. I don't want that to turn blue after all. If you click on it again, it turns it on. So you can not accept one of those colors by doing that, not to change the color. You might also not like how these colors were assigned. That was perfect timing. We can edit the colors in the new column in different ways and reassign different colors. So you don't have to accept what it came in with. The red bar, or this dark pink bar, we're going to drag it up on top of the pink bar. So we're going to take it up, put it on top of the pink bar, and let go. Basically what that says was everything that was pink or dark pink, red, now is going to be this blue. I don't care. Okay. We just told Illustrator to replace the dark red and the lighter red with the blue-green color in the new column. What it's doing now is using tints and shades of that blue color to show the difference between pink and dark pink, rather than bringing them in exactly the same. All right. We are now going to click on the blue-green color box in the new column, which is this one, and right here. So click on this new color box to the right of the pinks. And in our CMYK sliders down at the bottom, we're going to tweak it a little further. We're going to change our magenta value from 69 up to 100%. So we're going to say, yeah, you should really be purple, basically. So those two pink colors are assigned that purple in different tints, a lighter and a darker. You're happy with that, you can click open the right side of the panel. And if we like these changes, again, at the top right, we can click on the Save Changes to the Color Group. Notice in cassette colors, it now changed that one to be much more purple, that darker color. And then we're going to say OK. And if our swatch panel were open, those swatches would be updated again. Click away to deselect. And that's a way that you can assign different colors. So all those different color harmonies, maybe the color rules that you bring in from the swatch library, maybe you go into the nature color schemes and you find those beach colors. You load them into your swatches and then you recolor your artwork using the beach color family. It's fast. It's way faster than what you would do clicking piece by piece. If you don't like the way it recolored, reassign them, switch them around. All right. The last part of this chapter is pretty cool. It's called Live Paint, and we need to open a brand new file to deal with that. So do a file open, and from our chapter we're going to do with the start number 2 file. And this is what we have to look at. This is a business card, front and back. And we're going to do a file save as. And call it your name, and then Geo Design. Fit all in the window, we can see it's 2 different business cards, or front and back. We're going to select this white rounded square that's tipped on its side up at the top, and we're going to zoom in, and with that selected, as we zoom in, it keeps zooming in on just that shape, which is helpful, and it focuses in on artboard 1 where it's located, and we're going to deselect. So we just selected it so that when we zoomed in, it would hone in on that zone. All right. What we have, if you look at this, is just a white shape, like we said, rotated, whatever it is, 45 degrees to make it look more like a diamond. And we are going to add some lines to this so that we can use Live Paint. Live Paint's pretty cool. Live Paint lets you paint vector graphics intuitively by automatically detecting and correcting gaps that might otherwise affect the fill. So you guys have probably had this when you're drawing out your fruit and you forget to fill something in, or you do a weird shape and you're like, well, crap, how do I fill it now? What this does is if you have gaps, so maybe when you drew out your apple shape, you didn't fill it in all the way, if there's a gap there, it can detect that and join it for the sake of filling it with Live Paint. The cool thing is, like in a coloring book, when we color in a shape, that's a one-way street. When you color it in, it's done. But if they were to move, let's say the mouth of Mickey Mouse is smiling and it's wide open, and his face is colored in pink, if you suddenly make his mouth smaller in Illustrator, normally wherever you colored pink, that wouldn't continue to fill. This will fill now. It's smart. It knows that when you move boundaries, the color should flood in and continue to fill that shape. That's why it's called Live Paint. Underlying shapes are not edited, so you're always free to continue to move them around. So what we have to do first is we have to turn this weird thing into like a diamond shape. So we're going to get our line segment tool, which may be nested, probably is, under your rectangle tool. It's way down at the bottom. It's called the line segment tool. And then we want to make sure that we're working with our default colors of black and no stroke. So push D on your keyboard. Whoops, don't do that. Go down to the bottom of your toolbar and click on the default colors and bring, did I zoom out? What am I doing wrong here? Oh, I have that all selected. There's the problem. Cancel, undo, don't select anything. Get your line, and we want to make sure that we have the default fill of white and a stroke of black. So we're going to click on this default button down here. That just means whatever we draw with, there's no fill, but a 1-point black stroke is the default. All right, what we want to do with this is we want to click, and if you want to zoom in, I zoomed out there for a second, make sure you're up close. We're going to draw a line from the top of this black point up to the top of the white, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but we're going to just draw it in. So there's one line. Remember, if you hold shift, you get a straight line. I'm going to draw another line over here, and another line here, and another line here. Okay, if I look at mine closely, I'm not perfectly up against the edge here, nor am I perfectly up against this. And even though in a coloring book this would look like 4 shapes to color, in Illustrator speak, this is still one big shape, right? The white shape is just one big thing underneath there, and these happen to be lines on top of it. It's not 4 different shapes yet. All right, so once we have those drawn in, we now need to turn this thing into a live paint object so that we can actually work with it that way. Let's just look at this in outline view for a minute. Command Y. And we're going to take our selection tool and we're going to select all of these pieces to select all of them. So we have the big white shape, the black diamond in the middle, and all 4 of our lines selected. Then we're going to go back to our regular view. But I wanted you to notice how all of those different elements were selected. All right, we now need to get the paint bucket tool, and it may or may not be nested here, depending. On my home computer, it was nested under the shape builder, but it's not here. So whenever there's a tool not visible, you have to go down to the bottom of the toolbar to those 3 dots and click on those to see all the different tools that exist that just currently aren't in use. And the tool that we want is the Live Paint Bucket tool. Paint. So down in the paint category, we see the Live Paint Bucket, and drag that into your, somewhere into your toolbar. And then click away to close that. All right, so that's the Live Paint Bucket tool. Okay, over on the right-hand side in our Properties panel, we want to click on the Fill box, and we want to see what is loaded with this document. Remember that I told you that swatches are unique to the document? If this swatch started from an image that was a grayscale image, it would have come in black and white. So this first row of nothing, registration, white and black show up, and then you can see they've added a color group of specific colors that are global colors that they've created, 4 different colors of purple. That is the color family that's loaded with this document. All right. In our swatch panel, we want to select the swatch called Purple Number 1. And you get the little white box around it. I want you to notice what's to the right of it is Purple Number 2, and what's to the left of it is either going to be black or it might revert to this Purple Number 4. I honestly can't remember until we see in a minute. But what we did was we set our color. So it's set here in the fill, and it's set at the bottom of our toolbar to be that Purple Number 1. All right. From here, go back and make sure that you have your live paint tool and bring it out over your object. Notice that your cursor looks like a paint bucket and there's 3 color chips. The one in the middle is the one that you picked. That's purple number 1. The one to the right of it is the next one in line to the right in our swatch panel, and the one to the left of it is the one that's to the left, which actually loops back around in those 4. So those are the ones that are loaded. With this tool, we are going to move our cursor over the small black square in the center here. Do you notice that my tooltip says click to make a live paint group? We need to do that first. So click on this black square in the center, and that just made all of this a live paint group. Now look as we hover around what it's doing. Look how smart it is. Now it knows that what we really meant was for this to be a chunk. This is a chunk. You see how there's a red outline around it? It made all of these into live paint pieces of all of these that we selected. So by hovering over one, it's now a selected piece. And we also, not only did we make it a live paint group, that first piece that we clicked on, which was the black triangle in the middle, it dumped that center color, purple 1, into it. So it painted it and made it a live paint group all at once. All right, move your cursor over to this top left piece. And on our keyboard, we're going to use our arrows. And we're going to arrow once to the right. Notice that that took the swatch to the right and loaded it in the center of our 3 swatches. So that's the one that when we click, it's going to fill. So there you go. You got that filled in. Now we're going to come over to this one. And we're going to right arrow to this brighter pink. And we're going to fill it with that color. If you aren't seeing the name of the chips and you're not sure what you're working with here, like if you absolutely have to see the names of them and you don't know which one is purple 1, 2, or 3, what we can do is go back over to our fill swatch over here, and that gets our swatch panel, and now we can see which one is our main one, which is purple 3. We see the highlight around it, so we know that to the right of it is purple 4 and to the left is purple 2. Go back and grab purple 2 again, specifically. Load that up. And then we're going to click this next area. You need to click away to close that pop-up window. Come back down with your live paint and click again to load that purple 2 over here. And then the last one we want to do is purple 4, and if we want to make sure we have it loaded, we can come to our swatch panel and we can load up purple 4. Or if we knew it was the darkest one, we could just left or right arrow and fill that last piece with the darkest one. So we took something that wasn't shapes like that, drew some lines in, turned it into a live paint group, and then dumped paint into it. So by default, this live paint bucket tool only paints fills. That's its default behavior. If you want it to paint strokes or do something to strokes, you have to tell it that in a setting. So over in our toolbar, we're going to double click on this tool that we're using, the live paint bucket, and we can see in the options, paint fills is the default, but we also want to turn on paint strokes. That's something that we want to be able to do. And then we're going to say OK. So it still seems the same as we're hovering over our fills. However, it's going to act a little bit different when we get to a stroke. It's going to turn into a paintbrush when we hover over a stroke. However, before we go and do anything, in our properties panel over here, we want to go to the stroke color and we want to click on it and we want to select none. That's going to load the no stroke as our first option in this live paint bucket tool. So as we're hovering over fills, we see our fill color options, but when we hover over a stroke, we actually see three options for the stroke, and the one that we just loaded up was no stroke, the red slash through it. And when we see that, we can click once and it takes away our stroke. So you can go and do that to all 4 of the strokes. Make sure that you get the paintbrush hovering and click on it to remove the stroke. We could have made that stroke white or black or any color we wanted, but we did no stroke. Take your selection tool and click away from it to deselect it, and let's save. So remember, this was a big white shape with a black diamond on top of it, and now we've turned it into something very different.
Where is that tiny little black line right in the center?
I don't have one. The black diamond was a fill, a whole shape, so maybe.
Yeah, I did.
You just have to go over it.
Oh, because
The
it
note
extended
shows
beyond.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, if you're if the line that you drew extended beyond this shape, like it's sticking out in the light purple up here or down here, do that same thing. Hover over it with that tool, the live paint tool, and when it turns into a paintbrush, click on the stroke that's still showing that you see to get rid of it. All right. The last thing that's pretty cool is how you can modify a live paint group, because all these shapes are editable. Each path is editable, and when you move it, the paint color kind of flows with it and fills in the shape that it should have been. All right. I'm going to zoom out here so I can see what I'm working on. With our selection tool, we're going to click on the purple rectangle shape that is the background of the entire document on the left here. Click to select that. And we're going to turn this into a live paint object. So the way we did it last time was we selected all the different shapes, and then we went into the live paint tool and clicked once to not only make it a live paint object, but also to fill that first shape. We did 2 things in one step. First thing we're going to do is just tell this, you know what, I know you're one big purple rectangle on the bottom of this stack, but I want you to behave differently, and I want you to turn into a live paint group. So we're going to go up to Object, Live Paint, Make. So now this rectangle is different, and you see the bounding boxes on the side have a different look to them, so that we know that we're in live paint mode. With our normal selection tool, we're also going to shift click on the dark purple. Whoops, I just lost it. Shift click on this dark purple bar that's also going through it. Notice that our bounding box got wider because it's including that purple piece as well. And we want to add this new piece to our live paint group. So we have to do Object, Live Paint, and then Merge, meaning add this dark purple bar to it as well. Now go and grab your live paint bucket in your toolbar. We're going to go over to our fill color over here on the right. We're going to click on that, and we're going to choose white as our fill color. And we're going to hover with our live paint tool down here at the bottom, and when we see that red outline going around the bottom chunk of our purple, we're going to click to make that white. So it divided that purple background. We're going to take our selection tool. Our live paint object grouping is still selected. It still has this funny bounding box around it. But with our selection tool, we're going to double click on this live paint object to drill down into isolation mode. Notice everything else is grayed out. We're in isolation mode. We just see our 3 chunks of live paint, white, purple, and light purple. We're now going to take our direct selection tool. We're going to go to this dark purple piece, and we're going to choose the left anchor point. Notice it's not a shape, it's not a rectangle, it's just a line with a really thick stroke on it. So we need to take the direct selection tool to get that anchor point, and we're going to drag it up. And because we're in live paint, everything moves with it. That shape below knows that it needs to fill with the white paint. Escape key will get you out of isolation mode and back to your original design. You can deselect everything and save the file. So that's live paint. Does that kind of make sense how it works? It's pretty cool, really. The trick to that is you have to select the shapes, either all of them like we did at the top where we marqueed all of those shapes and told it to go into live paint mode, or like we just did now where we selected one piece and said, hey, go into live paint mode. And then we realized, oh, we need that dark purple piece. So we added it to the selection and then we merged it into the live paint group before we could use it. Okay, a couple of steps there. Any questions? Colorizing is kind of cool and fun. You can change things really quickly. So that project that you did with Mary would have been even faster.
Just out of curiosity, like with your work, like if you were creating this, would you do it this way with like making all different color or separating them, or would you make all these different shapes and then
Up to you.
does it?
Yeah, it's
Just whatever's easier.
yes, whatever workflow works for you best. Maybe a bunch of shapes is easier for you. Maybe now that you've seen this, you're like, well, that was pretty easy. I'll just throw some lines in here and there and turn it into a live paint group. It's workflow. It all acts the same, really. It's editable. Oh, I do see a little black niblet sticking out of there now, too. Huh. Didn't see it when I was zoomed in, but I see it up there. That's weird. All right, that is live paint.